Hey guys, it's Mike here, and over on my Twitter, I asked my followers a question. That being, is there one argument you continue to hear in the Dragon Ball community that you're just tired of at this point? And if so, what is it? So essentially, there have been a number of big arguments that have been happening between members of the Dragon Ball community for decades now, spanning back to the original Dragon Ball. And of course, as Dragon Ball has continued to grow more popular, especially in the modern era with Dragon Ball Super, some of these arguments have only continued to grow. And many of them I feel like have kind of overstayed their welcome. So in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at some of your responses to this question, giving my thoughts on them, and afterward giving a couple of my own that I'm also tired of hearing. But before I begin, make sure to follow me on my Twitter at LSMMike if you want to get updates on my channel and current projects, as well as being able to participate in videos like these. But without further ado, let's get into this video. So first up we have, Goku is a bad father. Gohan should quit studying and become a full-time fighter, and DBS has bad animation, as well as DBS's manga is canon and the anime isn't. So yeah, certainly when it comes to Goku as a bad father, I'll start there because that is one that I saw a number of times on here. And I completely disagree with the idea that Goku is a bad father because, you know, just because Goku often prioritizes training over being a father doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't care about his children and he doesn't, you know, want the best for them. As we've seen in multiple points during the series, he's trained them, he's done his best to try and protect them. Every time he goes and fights, like in the Tournament of Power, it's not just so that he can fight, it's also to defend his family, which was on the line at the time. But also, Goku sacrificed himself to save Gohan and to save the Earth. So I feel like that is definitely an argument that kind of needs to go away, even though a lot of it spawns from, you know, the Team 4-star kind of meme, like, oh, Piccolo is really Gohan's father, which I don't even want to get into right yet. As far as Gohan should quit studying and become a full-time fighter, there's no reason that he can't do both. There's plenty of other anime and comic books and movie series where we see a character who is a action star or a hero who has to go and fight off legions of bad guys who also gets to balance that with having a life. Look at Indiana Jones, for example. Most of his life is spent being a scholar and being a teacher at a university, and he only occasionally gets into these adventures where he has to go globetrotting and finding ancient artifacts or defeating the Nazis, for example. So I think this idea that Gohan can't do both is really short-sighted. And Dragon Ball Super definitely did have some bad animation at various points, you know, whether that be based upon style that disagrees with a large portion of the audience, or more accurately because the schedule was so rushed, especially early on with the first two arcs. And, you know, people still argue about the canonicity of the Dragon Ball Super manga versus the anime. Totally Not Mark recently did a video in which he actually discussed, you know, what is true canon from his perspective or his best educated guesses, which, you know, I think is worth checking out. But also, you know, ultimately canon in Dragon Ball is such a dubious term. It is something that's always in flux, where basically the canon of Dragon Ball is whatever they feel like counting or whatever Toriyama says it is at any given moment. So this is an argument that is probably going to keep going on as long as Dragon Ball exists. Next up is Drake, and he's saying, can I just be tired of the Dragon Ball community as a whole? I mean, sometimes there's some rough periods for Dragon Ball fans when it comes to the community, especially when it comes to some of the drama as of recent, you know, and as well as, you know, whenever certain things happen in the series, there's just giant uproars, and I feel like the Dragon Ball community is a little bit more prone to some of these things than maybe some other ones, but then again, I'm also a big Star Wars fan, and, you know, it's constant civil war over there, which is kind of funny considering how the prequels turned out with that Civil War storyline. You know, who's the Emperor Palpatine there? Is it, J.J. Abrams? Kathleen Kennedy? You tell me. Geekdom 101. All of them. Wow, very specific right there, Geekdom. You know, I can definitely see this point of view as well, though. Autonomous Ultra Instinct Super Saiyan Blue Instinct. I messed up your name, sorry there, but I'm gonna answer your question, so I'll do my best to make it up. Gohan wasn't as strong as Cell when Cell came back after he blew himself up. Oh yeah. You know, that's one of the big things that people still argue to today, you know. Was Cell actually more powerful than Gohan, you know? I don't really think so. I think it's pretty clear that Gohan was still stronger based on not only the statements of Goku during the Kamehameha clash, as well as the fact that Gohan wasn't instantly defeated when he only had one arm and he was charging up the Kamehameha. You know, that seemed to be implied that it was only more of a mental block, you know? And then in addition to that, there's also what's said in the Buu Saga by Goku, who's saying that even though he thinks Deborah is stronger than Cell, he still thinks Gohan, who hasn't trained really seriously in 7 years, could still be able to defeat him if he were to become, you know, enraged. And even Vegeta says that if Gohan were to rage out, he'd be able to be a threat to Goku and Vegeta, even as Super Saiyan 2s. So I think that even though it almost would make a little bit of sense if Cell through his Zenkai surpassed Gohan, I think ultimately Gohan was more powerful, and, you know, if you doubt that, well, look what happened to Cell. Essay, Kid Buu was the strongest Buu. Oh, here we go. And Goku could have beaten Cell. Well, I did do a whole video about how Goku couldn't beat Cell, and Geekdom 101 did a really good video about, you know, who the real strongest Buu is. Definitely give him a follow and check that video out. But yeah, in the manga, where are you? Here you go. In the manga, it's pretty clear that Super Buu and his various, you know, mergings with the other characters, so Buuhan is more powerful than Kid Buu, and that Gohan, Gotenks, and Super Buu are all more powerful than Super Saiyan 3 Goku, who was stated to be more powerful than Kid Buu by Goku himself. However, in the anime, Toei decided to throw in a line about how Kid Buu was on a completely different level from all previous Buus before that, even though that was also a scene where Goku, as a Super Saiyan 2, was fighting against Kid Buu, which makes absolutely no sense, and that's just more Toei scaling for you, especially when it comes to trying to make Goku look like the best around, and nobody's gonna ever keep him down. And yeah, obviously Goku could not have beaten Cell. That's literally the entire point that was happening of that fight. You know, Goku tried his best, but he couldn't have won. And he couldn't go Ultra Instinct or surpass his limits or whatever because Super changed how that works too. Super Saiyan 4 is stronger than God in Blue. Oh man. Well, I think it's pretty clear at this point, just looking at the feats and everything we've seen in Dragon Ball Super, that Goku as a Super Saiyan God in Blue is more powerful than Super Saiyan 4 Goku was in Dragon Ball GT. Now, you know, some people who try and shove in all the continuities together and say GT takes place afterward, obviously they disagree. You know, and then there's the GT Perfect files, I believe, where they state that instead of Super Saiyan 4 being a strict multiplier, it brings out Goku's power to its absolute maximum, or I guess the Saiyan power. So, you know, if Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue don't either surpass that or, you know, do the same thing, then you can theoretically argue that Super Saiyan 4 might be stronger, but at the same time, I think it's pretty clear that that's not the case. And even in Dragon Ball Heroes, they do make it seem like they're more like even than stronger. So again, I don't really agree. And yeah, again, Goku's a bad dad meme, which casuals who took Abridged way too seriously, yeah, I mean, that is another kind of thing that I wish that people in the Dragon Ball community would stop doing. You know, a lot of people take Abridged way too seriously, and they constantly bring up power levels or bullshit and other memes whenever certain video topics are even mentioned or, you know, done on Dragon Ball channels, so the sooner that kind of goes away, the better in my eyes. Chi-Chi is a horrible character slash mom, yeah, that definitely happens a lot. She stopped Hogan, who I'm guessing is Gohan, from being a fighter. She's the reason why Gohan doesn't fight. In the series, she is definitely one of the best moms, who has to put up with so much yet continues to love and support her family. And I agree that it's definitely a argument that's just been done to death at this point and kind of needs to go away because it's still going on constantly. Every time you bring up Gohan, for example, or do a Gohan video, a lot of the comments will be, oh, it's Chi-Chi's fault, you know, but the truth is, how Chi-Chi was written and how Gohan was written and everything is Toriyama's fault. It is Toei's fault. It is Shueisha and Bird Studio. But honestly, when it comes to Chi-Chi as a character, I've never really liked how she was written anyway. You know, she had so much potential as a character, considering that she was the daughter of the Ox King, you know. She could have been like a female version of like Krillin, for instance, who was fighting alongside Goku and, you know, joined the team. You know, basically you had the female dynamic with Bulma and Launch, but they couldn't really fight in martial arts tournaments and stuff, you know, like Chi-Chi could have. And ultimately did in the 23rd tournament, but she basically was just a joke character in Dragon Ball who kind of just existed to trick Goku into wanting to marry her, and then eventually Goku actually fell in love with her and did want to marry her when he figured out what marriage actually was. But then she has such a shift to being a typical, like, angry mother who is always, you know, being a foil to the story. Ultimately, even though she just wants her son to not be killed by creepy aliens in outer space, she is still kind of, you know, written in a way where she's, like, a minor antagonist in the fact that she's always trying to stop, you know, the plot from progressing and Goku and Gohan from actually achieving the goals that Toriyama sets up. So, you know, I kind of wish that she was more like Android 18 and she was actually, you know, helping out a lot more and didn't just become basically, you know, a homebody and someone who only existed to serve that purpose. Kind of like Videl to a lesser degree, because Videl was also this great female character who was able to actually fight, and she entered the tournament and it seemed like it was going to be maybe an actualized Chi-Chi kind of character who did more, but then after she gets beaten up by Spopovich, she literally does nothing other than just be a parent after that point, which, you know, it's not like that's necessarily a bad thing, but she definitely had way more potential than Toriyama wrote her to act upon. Aaron Van Duyn saying, yes, a lot of annoying ones, but the ultimate worst one is people still think Goku's a bad father. Yeah, I definitely think that that's very, very high up there. It's a malicious and stale joke, and it's legit infuriating and moody now. Yeah, I can only expect it to get worse, as that meme probably isn't going to die anytime soon. And then you have, like, corporate Twitters and stuff making the same stupid memes, you know, for, like, some of these anime companies, and it's just really annoying. There's too many, but the top ones include Goku's bad dad again, Piccolo is a good dad, and modern Gohan is trash and peaked at the Cell games. You know, again, it is kind of because of how Toriyama has written Gohan since, where he's constantly flip-flopping on him, and he makes him not train, and then he says he's gonna train, he trains, and then he just doesn't do anything again. So that's more of how Toriyama has utilized him, but considering the character isn't even like 30 yet in universe, and it doesn't seem like Dragon Ball is actually gonna end anytime soon, then I don't really agree that he's peaked, because, you know, he can easily be written to do a lot more. All of the Yamcha memes, yeah, I agree. Yamcha's weak, he dies all the time, you know, but if Yamcha was in Marvel or DC, he would solo most characters there, and his power would make him just so unbelievably more powerful than everyone up until Frieza. That Kai is trash, GT is trash, or that the sub is unwatchable / trash. There is so many. Yeah, Dragon Ball Kai is definitely not trash. GT is not trash either. It's definitely a lot better than Sword Art Online, or as I like to call it, Soul Art Online, which is kind of a reference to an old South Korean MMO RPG I used to play. And anyone who thinks the sub is unwatchable or bad, you know, I feel like you don't really have a good understanding of how these characters are actually supposed to sound. And, you know, like, a dub is just a dub at the end of the day. You know, it's not like the original real version. It's just some kind of localization, which I feel like is becoming less and less popular in recent years because of the fact that people have instant access to anime in Japanese and are less and less caring about it being in a different language. Goku's a bad father again. Other than Goku being a bad father, it has to be they threw all of their money in this animation, and fans threatened Toriyama to make Goku the main character again. Now, when you say that they threw all of their money into this animation, maybe what you're trying to say here is that many fans say that budget is directly related to the animation quality, which, if you were to follow someone like Anime AJ, you know isn't actually necessarily true. There's a lot of factors that go into good animation, which I think he's a little bit more qualified to talk about than I am at this point. And the whole idea that fans threatened Toriyama and that's why he made Goku the main character isn't true. It's a misconception, and Geekdom has talked about it in the past. For whatever reason, he just thought that Gohan wasn't suited to be the main character. However, I and many other fans would definitely say that that was a mistake to make. Why isn't Gohan in Dragon Ball Super Broly? Because Toriyama didn't feel like writing him into the movie, and he probably would have been one shot anyway because of how that movie went. Goku is a bad father again. Gogeta versus Vegito. I actually did a video on this one weighing in on my thoughts, as well as Dragon Ball Nation's thoughts. I believe he was the one in that video. And it's one that's probably just going to keep continuing, especially if the people behind Dragon Ball continue to change their minds about it like they have multiple times by saying, oh, Gogeta is more powerful in the short term, or Vegito is more powerful and because of this, because Batara. Or now when they say, oh, well, they're actually equal, which obviously isn't what they were saying before. And continuing because someone else said it, you know, the fact of the matter is it depends on when they would fuse at what point. You know, for example, I'm sure we would know for a fact if the multiplier was different, if, like, let's say that Goku and Vegeta used the Metamories fusion and fused together as Gogeta, and then let it elapse, and then they fused together with Batara earrings, and maybe they fought someone of the same power, and then someone commented on it, or if the two of them fought each other at the same time. Probably being from alternate universes like in Dragon Ball Heroes, although the power scaling and writing in that series is so nonsensical that it wouldn't really be the best place for it to happen. And of course, Goku solos. Yeah, people think Goku beats everyone ever because, you know, Limit Breaker and, you know, plot convenience, but not really true. There's plenty of characters, even including Zeno and the Grand Priest, who could probably wave their hand and he instantly ceases to exist. So, yeah, he doesn't solo everyone, but Harold does. So thanks to all of you for your responses, and I want to add a couple extra ones to this list before I go. The first one being one that I've talked about in videos many times in the past, which is Dragon Ball Super's obsession with characters being caught off guard and hurt by things that wouldn't happen in previous series. So of course, every time I bring this up, there's always people that will comment and say, well, you don't understand how suppression works, or, well, in Dragon Ball Z, there was a scene where Krillin threw a rock and it hurt Super Saiyan Goku when he was pretty much asleep. Or there was a scene where Chi-Chi hit Krillin in the face with a door and it hurt him. But I feel like those commenters just don't really understand what I'm trying to say there. Which is that Dragon Ball Super has actually changed how getting caught off guard and suppression works in the Dragon Ball story. Because when it came to Kid Goku, he was constantly not injured by things such as bullets, rocket launchers, or weapons that would instantly kill a normal human, and while Goku is completely caught off guard. And then we have tons of other examples where Goku and other Z fighters, or even villains, are hit by attacks when they're not even paying attention, completely caught off guard, and it does nothing. Like Frieza on Namek when Vegeta blasted him at full power from behind, and then Frieza just laughed and was like, oh yeah, wait your turn. Or even Cell, who during an anime exclusive scene was attacked by Krillin and Trunks at the same time, while he wasn't even paying attention to their attacks, and it did nothing to him. Dragon Ball characters were always implied to have a level of resting power or defenses, that the more powerful they became, the tougher that became. So you couldn't just hurt them with weak attacks, even when they're not paying attention. So yes, Dragon Ball Super completely changed how that works, which is why Goku can now be hurt by bullets or by a laser beam. And finally, the last argument that I wanted to bring up that I continue to hear even now is that people think that Dragon Ball is only a Goku exclusive series, that it's a franchise that must continue to revolve around Goku even now, and that the series cannot shift to other characters or move forward without him, which I think after decades of building up the Dragon Ball world and other characters being introduced, that's pretty clear that the Dragon Ball story should be able to survive and move on and even thrive without Goku as the main character. Sure, he's iconic and he's popular, but at the same time, that doesn't always lead to the best story or the most interesting plot. So I definitely think that Dragon Ball could survive without Goku being in that main character slot, as it did during many sections of Dragon Ball Z, where other characters like Gohan and Krillin and other characters had the spotlight. Whether that's in the main story or in spin-offs is a completely different matter, and something that I hope that the people who run the Dragon Room and Toriyama and Toei are all looking into and thinking of a way to move forward without Goku as that character. They already gave us the dynamic with Oob, so as I've talked about in the past when it comes to Oob, it's possible that the torch could be passed to him. So I definitely think that there's a lot of directions that they can go in, and there's no reason to only have one series or one story going at a time that does that. So these have been arguments that Dragon Ball fans are tired of. What are some arguments that you're tired of hearing? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you're new to this channel, then make sure to subscribe and enable all notifications so that you can see all of my videos and community posts right away when they come out. YouTube doesn't necessarily do the best of sending my videos to my subscribers, so if you can also like this video and share it out, I would really appreciate it because it definitely helps the channel. And make sure to stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.